So, thank you, Mikhail, for answering all the questions I had. And we'll continue on with our final speaker, Jiri Ruzicka, who is a researcher here in the Academy of Sciences in the Department for the Study of Modern Czech Philosophy. And his work focuses on the history of ideas, and more specifically, he works on historical materialism. And so today, the title of his talk is What is Left from Historical Materialism, and What Could It Become? Yes.
Firstly, thanks, Nick, for his presentation. Myself, and thank Jana and Michal for invitation. I have one good question, one good message for you. I will be very brief because I think almost everything what I wanted to say here was already said, and I think that we next time had to, for example, with Michal, quite synchronize what we will be talking about because our subjects are overlapping. I just want to say a few words. It was already here mentioned by Michal that, or at least implicitly, that on the other hand, Badiou's thinking is directed toward or against everything what could be said historical thinking, thinking which put the history and historical explanation in front of the present situation. We can see it when you see this is not from the first parts of the logical process. In the end, in the conclusion, we can read. Democratic materialism has a passion for history. It is truly the only authentic historical materialism. As we see, democratic materialism is for Badiou arch enemy, and here we see as he directly connects democratic materialism with not only historical materialism, but with authentic historical materialism. Sorry, I will just... It's okay. In the second sentence, we can read, as far as the crucial destiny of historical materialism is concerned, which quite simply is political materialism, I do not think I'm falling short. I believe that you can read the long scholium on Mao at the end of Book 7 in Logic of Worlds. You will see that the Logic of Worlds contains dialectically a very strong dosage of historical materialism. This is a juxtaposition that was not made by me. It was the juxtaposition of these two sentences or expressions by Bruno Bostals. The second one comes from his internal debate with Bruno Bostals. Sorry. As you see here quite clearly, the historicity or the problem of historical materialism is not strange to Badiou's thinking. I would say it is quite the contrary. Even if you take account the first sentence, which is very unfriendly to any historical thinking, we can say with some reservation, we can take a logic of worlds as a conceptualization of historical materialism in some sense. You can find here the concept of the worlds. You can find here the concept of the transcendentals. The concept of the subjectivizable body. That is this everything which can we see as the elements of new conception of historical materialism. But in some way that applies not only for logic of rules, that applies for being an event as well, because as you probably remember, there are parts which try to conceptualize the difference between natural and historical multiplicity. We can go back to this later, maybe in the discussion. I don't think that this dichotomy between natural multiplicity and historical multiplicity holds because of one reason. If we take the natural multiplicity, it is defined by continuous chain of presentation and representation. This is not endless, and it stops at this famous atomic atom of this multiple. If we define, and if we take as that something as natural multiplicity exists, really, then I don't think that there is a place where something like even can take place. There is nothing like void. There is nothing like not represented but presented element, which are the crucial, I think, elements of the theory of the concept of the even. But regarding the so-called traditional historical materialism, as we can define the traditional historical materialism as a theory of modes of production, how they emerge, how they disappear, that there is something like revolution, as Michal puts it, there is a big similarity between, or could be similarity between the revolutions and events. There are nonetheless very big differences. I would say one of the biggest differences is the difference between the extension of the so-called mode of production and the extension of Badiou's world. Because if we if we recall the examples from the logic of worlds, we can see that the extensions of the worlds are very different. We can meet like Paris in 1871. We can take the period of cultural revolution, or something much bigger like classical world, which extends for quite a big several centuries. If we take modes of productions in historical materialism, that lasts like 2-3 centuries, maybe more. If we take, for example, something like Asiatic mode of production, which has not only 3-4 but much more centuries in the history. But we can talk to this later, maybe in the discussion. One, because I take this more not as a presentation of my opinions, but much more as a points to discussion. The next point I would like to discuss is the what exactly makes the unity of the world in Badiou's logical worlds. Because what we know that the so-called transcendentals makes consistent appearance of the object of the multiple, not object, of the multiples in each and every historical world. I would like to know what exactly makes these 3 or 4 transcendentals as unity. What makes the unity of these transcendentals? Because we have there the procedure of synthesis of minimum, and I think there is a conjuncture and something like, and there is envelope. But this, I would say that the envelope is something like, I'm talking to you who actually read the logic of orthodox. Sorry for those who didn't read the book. I think that the best candidate for this is the envelope. But the envelope, as it is, it involves a lot of multiples together, is one procedure within many. It doesn't have any dominant position. I think that there, and you can correct me, perhaps, that there is lacking something like nodal point in Lacan, or forgot the name of the Argentinian political philosopher. Lacan, sorry. So these would be two points to discuss. The second thing what I'd like to talk about here, that would be my so-called hypothesis, is that we can, in Badiou, we can find something we can call philosophy of history. So it's not the theory of history. It's not what we can see in his conceptualizations of historical worlds and subjectification bodies and the theory of points and so on. But in the sense of the old school philosophy history, we probably they've been encountering since Kant and Hegel. That means in the sense that there is behind or besides blind events and structures and finite processes, that there is something more which is rational, universal, or truthful. I will start with next citation. This is another jab against the historical materialism, but take it aside for a moment. It is crucial to disjoin the materialist dialectic, the philosophy of emancipation through truths, from historical materialism, the philosophy of alienation through language bodies. To break with the cult of genealogies and narratives means restoring the past at the amplitude of present. The bold letters are mine. This is restoring the past as the amplitude of the present. If you take it as it is, it sounds very strange. In one sense, this syntagma, or how to call it, would at least, according to me, subscribe any who would claim here as historicist from the 19th century, because restoring the past as the amplitude of the present implies that we can explain or understand the present as something which has a lot to do with the past as a continuation, or the past as something which explains the present. This is exactly what the Badiou wouldn't do in no way. So what I would put another and the last citation. But on the basis of some true procedures that unfold subject to visible bodies, point by point, one reconstitutes a different past, history of achievements, discoveries, breakthroughs, which is by no means a cultural monumentality, but legible succession of fragments of eternity. That is because a faithful subject creates the present as the being there of eternity, accordingly to incorporate oneself into this present and also perceiving the past of eternity itself. I try to, if it is possible, point out this legible succession of fragments of eternity. this is what I would call the philosophy history in the Badiouian sense. If we recall all those historical examples Badiou mentioned mentions in the logical worlds, like take for example politics or political emancipations, and he mentions like Spartacus in the same line. Spartacus, then Toussaint Louverture, then Spartacus movement in Germany, Karl Liebknecht, Rosa, Luxembourg. In 1919, if he takes, for example, the Master of Ardèche Cave, and then Pablo Picasso, he is emphasizing something very important and very strange, I think, for everyone who just deals with history. It sounds very strange. All those persons or those historical agents are not doing the same thing. That would be quite strong, but they are acting according to same thing, according to same idea or same truth. That's put quite, I would say, pressure on Badiou how to conceptualize this. What is this syntagma, Fragments of Eternity? Because we know that he emphasizes that the truths are eternal, but here we encounter fragments of eternity. We can say, and we can endorse one crucial thing. It's not mentioned in Badiou, but I think it is something we can imply from or induce from that in each and every event which is marked by the truth, or which just creates the truth, we do not create the whole truth. We create only the fragment. I wouldn't say that Badiou would admit that in each and every historical situation we can create or participate on the truth as a whole. We encounter or we produce only the fragments. So for me, at least, the question of the would-be historical materialism as a philosophy of history is not. It is not the problem of past and present and how to unite them together. It is, for me, the problem of fragments of the eternity. You can say of eternity. You can place truth and the truth as a whole, and then the next step would be the relationship between the fragments of eternity in the historical line. Just to write it down. Just to have it in front of our eyes. We have Spartacus here. Lecture, Asian version, and then we have Rosa Luxembourg. It's kind of speculation. It's not, you cannot find it in the logical tools. So we have fragments of the truth here, here, and here. So this is the philosophy. The history of philosophy should account for the passages or what is happening between here and here when the truth is no more apparent but latent, or is denied or occulted, and then what is this truth? Truth as a whole. If this is legitimate reasoning, maybe it is not, because if we take, for example, the problem when Badiou deals with the painter of the Master of Ardèche Cave and Pablo Picasso, he explicitly denies that there exists the movement, like from the top to bottom. Like this is a political example, but the movement is from the bottom to top. It is not. That would be Plato. It would be Badiou. But I think that still, if I would sound here a bit of like analytical philosopher, but if you use fragments of eternity, that implies that there is fragments of something, fragments of some whole. What is the whole? Or, as I said, it is really legitimate reasoning to say that there is something like whole, something like truth as a whole. If not, what does it then mean if there is a legible succession of fragments of eternal truth, I would say. So, I would like to just skip to some conclusion and concluding remarks. What I think we find in Badiou's conceptions of truth and of historical words is one say. It's not paradox, but it's a very peculiar coupling between historical, say, situations, something what is historical always, and something which is eternal, or which makes the appearance of something eternal possible. That means this is the even. So there are two things which are very close and in very close conjuncture. Something which is historical, something which is eternal. So how would then in the next step would something like historical materialism look like? It should account for, at least for me, it should account not for coupling of or explaining of different situations and different events and processes or structures, but it should take account only those events which brought something truthful and eternal to appearance. So it should string all those in some way. I don't know which way, but it should string those historical events as the events through which something eternal is like coming. This is a bad expression. Coming to down to world's best expression. It's very Platonic, but in this sense, Badiou is not Platonic. What is I would say peculiar or quite a bit paradox, that this stringing together of all those events, truthful events or events which brings the truth, is not one continuous history of something. It is not continuous. It's not history of evolving some one idea like it would be for Hegelians. I don't say Hegel especially, but for Hegelians, it is one history. It is a history of the same truth, but what should be emphasized that between those events there must be something like discontinuity. Yeah, this is the condition of emergence of something new, as we know from Badiou himself. So this is not one continuous evolving of truth or eternal truth. It is one and the same history of truth, but the possibility of their emergence is only through something exceptional, which makes holes in the history, makes the history as itself paradoxically discontinuous, but one and the same. And that would be the end of my presentation.
Thanks. I think hopefully we have some time for some questions and discussion. Yeah.
Yeah, so I have two comments and questions. One for